Hello and welcome to Education Today. I'm Jonathan Zisch with the Armstrong School District. First, I'd like to thank everyone at WIUP-TV for airing this broadcast. Today, we'll see highlights of the school district's Act 72 public forum. It was held April 14th at Katanning Senior High School. What is Act 72? Well, it's a state law that seeks to reduce school district real estate taxes with money from gaming revenue. Districts must decide to participate by May 30th and must do so by raising the local earned income tax by 0.1%. At the April 14th forum, there were presentations, comments by state legislators, and also a question and answer period for the board and public. 53 people filled out surveys to register their opinion as to whether the Armstrong School District should opt in or not. So let's take a look at highlights from this important forum.
You know, when I went down there, was the idea never give in, never give up, and don't take no as no. And the fight continues. This is one step. I voted for Act 71 and 72, primarily because I don't see that there's not the option there for the third option, or the fourth option, or the fifth. There's not the consensus there. And I've said this before, and I don't know if any of you have heard it, and forgive me if you have, and I'm repeating myself. There are 50 senators in the state of Pennsylvania. This is one of my colleagues, Senator Furlow, right here. 19 of us are west of the Susquehanna River. 31 of us are east. Now, the 19 west, and that's once again a reflection on population, because we all represent roughly 252,000 people. The 19 of us in the west, whether you're Republican or Democrat, are for, in one form or another, property tax reform and elimination of property tax as we know it today, school property tax. Now, in the east, it's a little different situation. And I always pick on this one county. I'll pick on them again, Bucks County. Bucks County and Armstrong County are roughly the same size geographically. Armstrong County with, let's say, 80,000 people. Bucks County has 650,000 people. Our average mean income, and I'm quoting here a district number, not necessarily the Armstrong number, I'm not sure of it, is roughly $26,000. Theirs is roughly $48,000. Our tuition average across the 41st district for tuition per pupil is roughly $7,700. Theirs goes anywhere from $12,000 to $14,000. When you ask a senator from down east, their priorities, property tax in some cases isn't even on their radar screen. They're worried about green space. They're worried about farmland preservation. They're worried about environmental issues. That's what their constituency is coming after them about. And until those demographics change, I'm not going to stand up here and politically posture and tell you that there's any other alternatives out there that are viable options at this point. My point is, I think the taxpayers have made it quite clear to me that they want a say in their property tax. And that's why I voted for this. And it's not like it was close, folks. It was 50 to nothing. And, you know, here's the way you can put all the figures, all these high-priced people they brought up here tonight to talk about this, all you want. But it comes down to this. If the gambling thing, whether you're for gambling or against gambling, if they reach half their goal, which is the 500 million figure, that means, based on the figures, some of you might have seen them, or depends how convoluted you want to read the other ones, you'll receive $251. Now, where do I break even? It's pretty simple to me. I wasn't real great in math, but it's 0.1%, not 1%, 1/10 of 1%. So when I look at that, I say, well, if I make less than $251,000 a year of earned income, I'm a winner. If I make over that, I'm a loser. But the bottom line is School districts are squirming, and I understand, and I wouldn't want their job for all the tea in China. And I'm not here to berate them. But if it weren't for the back-end referendum, they'd be lining up to sign up for this. And it's not revenue neutral at all. This is talking about if it reaches its $500 million goal of over $3 million to the school district. I will continue the fight, folks. I will continue to fight for the total elimination of property taxes. But I'm not going to stand up here and lie to you. This is the best thing we have going.
I'm unabashed about my support for public education. The state government over the years has been woefully inadequate in not meeting its 50% mandate, which I believe very strongly in committing myself to. Under this governor, though, I will say very clearly in the action of the state legislature, including the Senate, that we have gone from a 44% from a 36% to a 44% increase in state dollars coming back to local school districts. This legislation, whether it be Act 71 to approve gaming or Act 72 for the property tax relief, was not a bill aimed at assisting public education. We did approve a $200 million accountability block grant a year ago, and that is a very large sum of money that the state legislature committed to public education to assist with smaller class size, teacher education, kindergarten education, and funding by local school districts. So I think that was a step in the right direction, and I think we have a governor who's very strongly committed to assisting public education with additional state dollars, and that's been his goal, and we'll keep fighting on that issue. I'm also an unabashed supporter of the STOP proposal. I'm a co-sponsor, and I believe, because I've seen the mess of the assessment system in Allegheny County, spent over $40 million in a system that nobody's happy with. As you well know, the property assessment system is very subjective, determining the assessed value, and as far as I'm concerned, we should get rid of property tax as a way of funding core services like public education. But we're not naive, and I'm not going to sell you a bill of goods. You can't eliminate property tax and give up on a commitment and a principle of public education without replacement revenue. And I support the worthy aspects of the STOP proposal. I have some reservation about the Republican Party caucus, the Commonwealth Caucus sales tax proposal, because it's regressive. It would include all your grocery bills, even those at the lower rung of the economic ladder. And it would even, I think, initially include the pharmacy bill and medications and physician visits. So I would have some reservations about that. Gaming is an adult activity that most people have voted with their feet. We've seen over the years hundreds of millions of dollars leave Pennsylvania for New York State, West Virginia, New Jersey, and elsewhere. I'm not going to make any moral statements. There are those who I respect, who have strong religious beliefs in opposition to gaming, and I respect that, and that's their prerogative. But the fact of the matter is that money, not only the gaming dollar, but the retail dollar, has left this state. It's a hotel dollar, it's a golf dollar, it's a pro shop dollar, it's a restaurant dollar. There's no reason why that money shouldn't stay within Pennsylvania to assist economic development, create jobs, and the like.
This is a tough issue for me. I am one of those guys that has moral predilection to stand against gambling, to fund education, but in the big picture, it's not about me. It's about you. I did a lot of walking last summer and through the spring. Like Don White said, the message is clear. Property taxes, we need some kind of relief, and one step further, and better yet, we need elimination. I'm going to be straight up honest with you folks. We don't got the horses to make it happen yet. We don't. As Senator White pointed out of the 50 senators, 31 of them live east of the mountains. And as Representative Pallone will tell you, out of the 200 representatives from every corner of the Commonwealth, 110 of them live not only east of the mountains, but in the 6 counties in the city of Philadelphia, the 6 counties surrounding it. Like it or not, Act 72, the horse is out of the barn. It's here, okay? I think we're foolish in one aspect, not to opt in. Anything that brings relief is good. However, we have to keep marching towards elimination. Angelo Bledgy and I have had talks before. We have the same goal. It's just how we go about getting there. I mean, I think what we really need to do is be able to spread the message better in other parts of the state. And lest I wax poetic, as was feared in local papers by some other elected officials, I want to state this clearly. The back-end referendum is scaring school districts all over this state. At last count, how many had opted in? 4, 6, 5, something like that. Just my opinion. They don't want to give up their power to tax. Just my opinion. And that's coming from one of the fold. I used to be part of them. Here's how I read it. And maybe John will back me up. I don't know what goes on his side of the aisle. There's a lot of legislators right now, and it's kind of informal discussion. Nothing's been framed out. But on my side of the aisle in the House, they're talking about separating that back-end referendum from Act 72 and running it by itself. Okay? I tend to put more faith in your decision.
I have an interesting background. I'm a little bit of a bean counter. I was educated by the public school system, went into accounting as an early field. I'm also one of those Philadelphia lawyers. I'm a lawyer too, so I can tell you as an accountant, 2 and 2 is always 4, and I can tell you as a lawyer, 2 and 2, what do you want it to be? And I can work that up for you. I started my elected career as a school board member, serving my local school district for 4 years. Had the opportunity to make terrific inroads in my community and advancements in public education. Served as our president of my local school board, because I can tell you firsthand the difficulty that a school board faces on a day-to-day basis. It's a thankless job, and even though every year when I was on the school board, we doubled our income, like I'm sure you guys do. They probably vote the first of the year to double their income, which, for those of you who don't know, the school board serves at 0 cost, and when you double that, you still get 0. So every year, they serve untiring for no fee to the district. It's a volunteer job. So we know that it's hard, we know that it's difficult, and I can say that in my 17 or 18 years now in government, I have known no elected official who comes to the table and says, I want to raise your taxes. So I don't think this school board or any other school board wants to do that. That all being said, and my distinguished colleagues, what they have shared, being the last is oftentimes the most difficult on a panel like this because there's not a whole lot else to say. However, because I'm a politician, I have something to say. There were a number of presentations made this evening in an effort to try and be objective, while I think they all had a little bit of a slant one way or another. I'm here to tell you that I voted in favor of Act 72. I voted in favor of Act 71 in my legislative district, which is compiled of those 10 communities that I talked about. I did 2 surveys before I even considered gaming, and while I'm personally in favor of gaming, my legislative district, which includes part of southern Armstrong County, came back on 2 different surveys at 83% and 84% in favor of gaming in Pennsylvania. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me to be able to come back to the taxpayers and the communities that I represent and say, gaming is an alternative to raise revenue, because I can tell you, I was sworn in the same day that Senator White was sworn in. In the 4.5 years that I've been in Harrisburg, I've been looking high and low for it, and it's just not there. There is no money tree in Harrisburg. I'm here to tell you that, ladies and gentlemen. There is not a tree somewhere in Harrisburg that money grows from that we can pick it from. It does not exist. It's not there. In order for us to fund programming in Pennsylvania, we have to generate revenue. We have to generate it somehow. It's either tax dollars or some alternate source. We don't produce anything in government. We don't have anything to sell in government. We have taxes. And in this case, we have the alternate revenue source of gaming. I think Representative Pyle has said it better than anyone so far, that the horse is out of the barn. It's too late to try and close the door. We have it. Let's live with it and let's deal with it.
Anybody from the board at this point? Ms. Stitt.
Yes, I was listening, and I agree with all of our legislators. We do need to get rid of property tax. I think it's the most unfair and ridiculous tax we have. But I am very disappointed in all that we're offering our people. I don't understand. I have a couple questions. The first one is, I agree that it's everyone here's, it's their opinion that counts, not mine, not yours, not any of us on the board. So why was this not decided to go out on a statewide referendum and let them vote on Act 72? I've received emails. We've all received emails, and surprisingly, the majority of the emails that we have received are against Act 72, which shocked me. And I would really like to hear what everyone feels. I don't feel that I'm getting the true picture when I receive, say, 20 emails and 2 of them are against and 18 are for. So I just really don't understand why this never went to statewide referendum. For us to, once we're in it and we're locked into it and we can't get out until at least 4 years after we start receiving the money, then we go to voter referendum to get out of it. Why wasn't it up to voter referendum to get into it?
Who would like to address that question from Ms. Stitt first?
Well, I don't know.
Senator Furlow?
I don't know that there's a clear answer. I mean, the basic contention for many in Harrisburg is to not totally override local decision-making by local elected school boards and local officials. There's a best interest and a sincere intent by the state legislature to, one, approve gaming and to fulfill some obligation towards that revenue going back to reasonable and meaningful property tax relief. If people in the school boards don't want to extend this property tax relief, and I think it's going to be more in the area of $400 as opposed to what Mr. Representative Pallone had quoted, then that's their prerogative. I think there are folks who are upset about this bill because they, like the STOP folks, want to see the property tax eliminated. So you do have folks who don't like Act 72 because they don't believe it goes far enough, and they're worried that this will yet delay the inevitable goal towards trying to actually get rid of property tax. But others have spoken about the political possibility of that happening, and you know, I just think that's what we need to work on. It's the reality that we're faced with at this point.
Mr. Parks, he is from Katanning also.
Representative Powell, it's really good to see you here.
Thank you.
I can't tell you how much respect I personally have for what you've been through, and it's good to see you back.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be here.
Wow, these projections were something tonight, weren't they? I don't think Einstein in his prime, along with the entire staff of Carnegie Mellon, could have come up with these projections. Well, what do they say? If 1/3 of them end up true, we'll be lucky. But my question, and this might have to go to Dr. Kerr, I understand Act 72.
You put a ring in.
I understand the back-end referendum. What I have a problem with are the list of exclusions. In other words, let's say the board decides to increase something, and it goes to a voter referendum. We all know what the voters are going to say. They're going to say, no thanks. However, regardless of what they say, we have all these exclusions. Am I correct?
Yes, there's a number of them. But
Okay.
not all of them are applicable to every district.
All right, let me pick up one. From what I understand, there's an item there, no child left behind program improvements. Am I correct?
Yes.
In other words, if I would have known that would have been on there, Dr. Kerr, I could have written at least 50 tonight, and I'm sure you could do even better than that. In other words, this board can write something down and say, this is designed to be a No Child Left Behind program improvement or whatever.
No.
And they send it to P,
No.
right?
No.
They don't?
No.
Okay, then you have to clear that up for me.
If you are in a No Child Left Behind improvement plan, it is not because the district initiates it. You're obligated by a federal law to do that program. And only if the program cost is above the inflationary rate can you apply for the exception.
I understand that.
Okay.
But if you send that to PDE, they're going to accept it. Am I correct?
Don't know about that.
Maybe.
I mean, PDE is going to be the, I guess to some sense, the regulator as far as whether they agree with the information that school districts submit to them to see if they fall within the exclusion.
All I'm saying is that I think somewhere along the line, maybe in some type of committee after the fact, we really need to look at those exclusions. Because if you look at all, I think there are 11?
10.
10.
Well, 11 if you count
Whatever.
Too many.
dead approved by voters, but that never happens. So.
Too many exclusions. And to me, anytime you have an exclusion or an exception to the rule, that's a way to get around the rule. So I think you better take a good look at that.
But again, this was an attempt not to, to be appreciative of the burden that local school boards have in trying to administer the costs of public education, state mandates, unfunded mandates like No Child Left Behind. A lofty bill, great idea, doesn't come with federal money.
I know.
So the idea was to try to, give them some ability to properly manage the resources, recognizing they have collective bargaining, healthcare costs, pension costs. It's one thing if they're going to go out and build a $20 million AstroTurf football stadium. Maybe that's something that should go to the voters for referendum. But if you got a collective bargaining award and the Blue Cross Blue Shield's gone up, 3.5%, then that's a burden that they have to deal with.
I understand. All I'm saying, Mr. Furlow, is that Senator.
Well, that's why I'm for the stop proposal.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that it really makes a voter referendum a moot point. It does. It does. If we have to increase wages and contracts and health benefits, then why ask us to vote on something? Because it doesn't matter.
If this doesn't get approved, it very likely may come back that there won't be any exceptions.
Well,
I think that would be bad.
And that's a possibility, just like these projections are a possibility of never being real. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. One more? Go ahead.
You know what? I might change parties.
Mr. Kavanaugh,
Put this
Worthington.
without any.
Final one, then we're going to go back to the board.
We went out
Yeah,
our way to
I
fight
was
for
stuck
these
back there, so I thank everybody for the opportunity to be here. Since I'm working, and I never really come in front of the board for anything important, I just wanted to make a few comments as I listened to all the presentations. Obviously, this is a tough situation to handle. I am an employee of the Armstrong School District, so I'm in the mix of the increased health care costs and the negotiations of what we have to go through and what the board has to go through. I just have some comments. They're not really to be cynical or attacking or anything, but they're just comments that were going through my head. When you opt in and the budget thing gets more in line with the state budget, you guys say, well, just simply gets you guys in line, the board in line with you. But when the board has to get in line with the state, they move my budgetary process. I budget for this music department. They move my personal budgetary process from the December time when I have a little window of opportunity to perform that back into September, October by the sounds of things, where I have to handle and decide how we spend based on what I'm offered and what I'm allowed. So you move my budget process into the most busiest time of the year, and what happens is you take me away from education and you put me into clerical work. My degree is in education. My degree is not in clerical work. Number two, and this one has a little personal impact on because of the nature of the business that I'm in, that's music education. We talked before, there was a statement made about trying to maintain, the boards still have local control by offering them, opting in, giving referendum. If the state wants local control to stay here, why do we have things like PSSAs rammed down our throat and teacher certification from our previous governor? The other thing is, when the voters voted not to use tax money to build stadiums, weren't there 2 stadiums built with tax money refurbed? My other one is, how much does it cost to operate these programs?
Not your tax money.
Huh?
Not your tax money.
It wasn't tax money?
Allegheny County tax money.
Okay. I said that because I didn't know. The other one
In terms
was,
of the referendum.
how much does it cost to operate these programs at the state level? Because I know the senior citizens were supposed to be benefiting from the Pennsylvania lottery, but I still see my parents paying $300, $400 a month for their medication and their doctor's visits and having to spend lots on health care. So is it going to cost more money to staff these gaming committees and to staff these activities? Is it going to be more to cost than it is to benefit? And that was my comments. It's the cost-benefit thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. I'd like to get back quickly to Mr. Parks's comments and questions. In terms of No Child Left Behind, I want to assure you that our school district, board and administration, has done everything possible, first of all, always to be accountable. Nobody's afraid of accountability. The questions that we have are the fact that there are so many mandates from federal and state government. There are problems and obstacles in which we have to overcome. But I want to assure you that every program, every service in our school district is closely monitored and evaluated through the budget process and through the administrative review with the board. No Child Left Behind is here. It isn't going away. Programs are expanding. Mandates are expanding, as we speak. So let's go back to the board. We're going to try to hopefully wrap this up in 15, 20 minutes. We've got some young people who need to get home, as well as everybody in the room. Back to the board. Any questions or comments in general? Mr. Root, comment.
But I'm not sure that the problem is this act seems to be coming upon us very quickly, and we are looking at a deadline that is at least a year in advance of seeing revenues come back. And so, as Dr. Kerr said earlier this evening, I don't think that anybody on this board is afraid of referenda. I honestly do not believe that anybody on the board is afraid of referenda. I think that our concerns primarily stem around the question marks and the ifs and the unknowns that are associated with it. And of the four of you gentlemen, only one of you, to the best of my knowledge, has ever served on a school board. So serving on a school board is an interesting challenge from a budgetary standpoint, at least, okay? And we don't like ifs for the most part. We like to know as much as we possibly can. Now, granted, there are always going to be several ifs. We are always going to be putting numbers together in advance of other numbers being solid. We've just, with the introduction or the potential introduction of Act 72, just introduced more variables into an equation that was already reasonably complex, okay? And that, I think, is what concerns most of this board more than nonsensical issues around referenda and, all of the other chest-pounding things that people want to do. I don't see that being a primary concern of this board.
Please join us again next week for another look at the Armstrong School District. If you'd like to learn more about Act 72, please visit our website at www.asd.k12.pa.us to review our Act 72 Information Center.